one of the more shocking things that I think has ever happened around Kentucky basketball, certainly in my lifetime. And we are at the KS Bar and Grill. We're going to be here. You're welcome to come for any and all of it. Last night, John Calipari leaves Kentucky for Arkansas. Let's go over just quickly initial reactions. There's a lot of ways to talk about it. I want to talk about what the future is for Kentucky, future is for Cal, and how we got to this point. What are some of the ways that this happened? And there are probably 3 hours of conversation, but let's start with this. Ryan, were you surprised?
You know, I learned a hard lesson in 2007 when it broke that Tubby was talking to Minnesota. I remember thinking to myself, Minnesota? He's not going to leave Kentucky for Minnesota. Well, we all know what happened. He left for Minnesota. So when I heard that about Calipari in Arkansas, I felt like kind of that, you know, there's maybe a little truth in there somewhere. I didn't know how serious it was, but maybe there's a little truth in there somewhere.
I was shocked. I'm not shocked he's gone. When he walked off the court against Oakland, I thought that was it. But I'm shocked it went down like this. I'm shocked it went down with Mitch publicly backing him. They do a television interview next to each other.
Yeah.
And they come out and publicly take the same side, and then he's gone a week later. That shocks me.
And it happened so fast, it seemed like last night.
Happened like overnight, like literally. We'll talk about Bobby Bones is going to come on. Bobby Bones has actually become a big Arkansas. He's always been a fan, but he's involved. And I think he'll talk about kind of what he says is exactly when it happened, et cetera. But I was shocked. Billy, were you shocked?
Shocked is a great word. I think I'm still stunned about it this morning. I'm trying to find the words to react, and Calipari's going to take a job that Chris Beard and Jerome Tang turned down just last week.
They were interviewing the coach at Arkansas Little Rock before this. From Arkansas Little Rock to Calipari. So that's amazing. I have a number of thoughts, and I want to just make them sort of as succinctly as possible. I'll do this in a broader form at 10 o'clock when KSR starts. But this is the best thing that could happen for everybody. It's very few things in life that are win-win. This is a win-win for everybody. It's a win for Cal. I think it's a win for Kentucky. And I think it's something where if, and this is a big if, Barnhart makes the right hire, all parties will be better off. And that's very rare in relationships, but it is. The Calipari stuff, and we've talked about it, and we took a lot of criticism for talking about it, but it was true. It had become so toxic, it didn't work. I thought it didn't work for the administration side, which is why I thought they'd come to a separation. They decided they could make it work. I was very, well, let me give you an example. I was talking to somebody that is very, very connected with the program, certainly more so than me, much more pro-Calipari than me. I asked them, what are the chances next year is successful? And they were like, 10%. Because it was just a disaster. And people don't realize how much of a disaster it was. And the thing is, we had fans that didn't want to hear it was a disaster, but it was. And it was time to move on. Calipari was unhappy. You heard the report yesterday from Matt Norlander. Calipari began reaching out to schools in February, according to him.
That was damning, I thought.
That Calipari had made it known he was interested potentially in the Ohio State job. But the timing didn't work because they wanted to coach before the tournament, and Cal thought he was going to have a deep March run. Well, that didn't happen. But you want to know why all of a sudden things looked weird in March? Well, that's an interesting report.
It very much is.
Right? So this needed to happen. But one thing I want us to remember throughout the whole show, as we talk about the Cal era, a lot of which was positive. You're not going to hear me blast it. I think he did a lot of really positive stuff. But this was not going to work going forward. It wasn't. He was just going to have more freshmen here next year, and it was not going to work. And I think now, let's take it from the Calipari side. He has a chance to go to Arkansas and be rejuvenated and have a final run at it, right? I think he'll bring all or most of his players there. It's a little harder to get to Arkansas, but that $5 million they're pledging a year in NIL will make that an easier path at Arkansas. He'll do well. And we need to, everyone listening needs to be prepared for this. Be prepared for John Calipari to be rejuvenated.
Yep.
back in suits that look amazing, wearing ties, getting in shape, recruiting at the highest level, bringing in a coach to do the X and O's. He is going to go like the guy who got a divorce and looks in the mirror and goes, man, what happened to me? He's going to go make the best version of himself, right? So he's going to come out and do well at Arkansas. But the thing you need to remember is he wasn't going to do that for his first wife. He wasn't. This was for the new wife. He wasn't going to do that. He was stubborn, and he was going to be him. He'll be the best version of Cal. But I also want to say this. I don't understand, and most of these fans are young. They've not been through this before. You guys have been through this before. I've been through this before. You have. Billy, you really haven't. But people haven't been through this before. But this idea that Kentucky basketball is now headed for the dumps because we lost Cal, we were good before him. And if we make the right hire, we'll be good after him. When you believe success is based solely on one individual, that is a cult, okay? That is not a team or a religion or a party. It's a cult when it's one person. Kentucky basketball is not a cult. We won with Adolph Rupp. We won with Joe B. Hall. We were winning with Eddie Sutton, and then that happened. But we won with Rick Pitino. We won with Tubby Smith. We had a 2-year gap with Billy. But I will note, even in those 2 years, Billy made the tournament in one of them.
Yeah, he did.
And we won with Cal. So we will continue to win if we make the right hire. But no, our fans, if you hear fans out there going, oh, we're going in the dumpster, tell them to buy a history book. Like, we can be just as good as we were if we hire the right coach, Ryan, which is the if.
Yeah, and I agree with you about the timing. The timing is just right, I think, for Cal and for Big Blue Nation. And to piggyback what you're saying about Cal, I think he goes there and that does well because now he's also got a chip on his shoulder.
He will.
He wants to prove all of us.
He's going to do well, and he'll have years, might even be next year, where he's better than us.
Yeah.
It still doesn't mean it wasn't the right decision, because this was going to be headed for a messy, nasty divorce. I'll also note, though, he's going to go to an Arkansas team. They got expectations.
Yes, they do.
Let me tell you what they've done in the last 4 years. We've won one NCAA tournament game. What have they done? 2 Elite Eights and a Sweet 16. That's a good run for them.
That's a great run
That's
for them.
7 tournament wins in 4 years. He's going to have to show up and do well to do that, right? 8 tournament wins. So I think they're going to be excited, but there's going to be a lot of pressure on him too there. So it's not,
We've seen it, the second best fan base in the SEC during the 90s
no doubt
was Arkansas.
And if they have the Tyson chicken money, what do you think of Tyson chicken now?
Never eat Tyson chicken ever again. Not one more dino nugget from me. But, in Calipari's own words, he said the shelf life at Kentucky basketball is about 10 years.
Yeah, he did.
I mean,
Yes,
he just
he did.
completed the 15th year, and I think we can all agree that maybe the relationship had run its course.
Stephen Peak is here. Stephen, give me that quote that he said in your book. Do you have that easily accessible? So Stephen read Cal's book, and a lot of Cal's comments directly from his words would have said that the John Calipari of 2010 would have agreed this was best for everybody. I'm going to read you his exact words. And in his exact words, he would have said what we are saying, which is this is best for everyone. And it has been left in such a way that now one day he can come back here and get a round of applause and we can thank him. If it had gotten much uglier, I don't know if that could have happened. Now it can. Now, I don't know if that'll happen next year. What happens when he comes in here with Rupp?
The SEC is going to have that on the schedule. Arkansas comes to Rupp
They were
Arena.
already scheduled to.
That ticket would be amazing, hard to get.
When we remember when Rick came back the first time when he was at Louisville, it was one of the most exciting electric environments I've ever seen in there.
I'm going to read. This is John Calipari's own words. So when you see people on the internet or you hear people out on the street telling you we can't be good, I'm reading you Cal's words from his book, Players First. The team had won a total of just 2 NCAA tournament games in the previous 4 seasons combined. And over the last 2, it had lost 27 games. That's not supposed to happen in Lexington, there was nowhere to go but up. Those are his own words. There was nowhere to go but up. If that applied when he got here, that applies when he leaves.
Sure.
There's nowhere to go but up. And so, you know, when people say, are you going to find somebody who was as good as him? Are we going to find somebody that was as good as him in 2010 to 2019? That's going to be hard. You still got to go try to do it, but it's going to be hard. But can we find somebody as good as he's been 2020 to 2024? Yes! 58 coaches have won more NCAA tournament games in the last 4 years than him. You don't think one of those 58 will take a call? And let me tell you what the great programs do. They make transitions. Since, I don't know if Hubert Davis or John Shire are even good coaches, but you know what they've done? They've made the transition.
True.
Hubert Davis made the Final Four, then he made a Sweet 16. John Shire had his team to the Elite Eight this year and has the best recruiting class that we've seen in a long time coming next year. If we make the right hires in the transfer portal era, we'll be right back, and everybody will understand we are not a cult. We do not require one person for success. We've never been that, and I don't think Ryan will be that day.
And I think Cal was the right hire in 2009. That was the right guy at the right time.
Yes.
So now Mitch needs to go out and do that again.
So who is it? Well, let's take a break, and let's think about it. Are you sad at all, Billy?
A little bit, but you know, kind of like what you're saying, Kentucky basketball is bigger than John Calipari. Maybe some of the younger generation has a hard time seeing that, but you know, they'll be bigger and better things. And he was bringing back 6 freshmen, getting ready to do the same thing.
We're about to do the same
thing.
We're about to do the exact same thing. Are you secretly excited you get called up to the big chair today?
Oh, yes.
With Drew and Shannon gone on maybe one of the biggest shows in history.
I'm thrilled. I'm ready to be here. Even though Frank Franklin would have been great this morning.
Frank Franklin's going to have stuff to say Wednesday. I'll just go ahead and tell you that. I will say this before we go to break. UK folks were taken aback by this. Shocked. Didn't see it coming. I mean, I was at the football practice Saturday. The conversation, nobody saw it coming. And I would argue even up through yesterday, people didn't see it coming. This was out of nowhere. And there's a lot of stuff to think about. So when we come back,